If you want to drop into chat to introduce yourself and what organization you're representing, so everyone knows who's here, that'd be great. And it looks like we've got 14 participants, so we'll get started. So good morning. Thank you for being here this morning. This will be hopefully a very quick meeting this morning, just to address some questions that have come up as everyone has begun their applications. And then we'll talk about, we'll ask some more questions, answer some more questions today. But first I want to introduce some of the people who are here. Nancy, would you like to introduce yourself? And then I will introduce Jason.
Good morning, everyone. I think I have met most of you, but I'm Nancy. I'm with the Community Foundation. Any questions that are more system related, getting onto the grant system, questions about Philanthropy Hub, you can direct to us at office@cfncf.org. I'll put that in the chat. ARPA questions are going to Kristen, but if there's anything that's not directly ARPA related, feel free to reach out to us at the office about that.
Great. And then, yes, my name is Kristen Young. I'm the ARPA project coordinator for the Community Foundation through this process. And you can reach me at ARPA@cfncf.org if you have any questions. And then if you would like a phone call, one-on-one phone call or a Zoom call, I can arrange those as well. And then we have Jason Pettis with us. Jason, are you from North Highland?
Yes, ma'am. Good morning, everybody. How are you?
Good morning. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes, ma'am. Okay, my name is Jason Pettis. I do work with North Highland. Glad to be a part of the project. Know a little bit about ARPA myself, as we've done some stuff, and be happy to support the project and you guys any way we can. I'll drop my email into the chat just for you. If you have anything that you need to contact me, please feel free to reach out. I'll be happy to talk.
Wonderful. And then how will North Highland be assisting in the process?
We're going to help you, to my knowledge, with some project management and project review, and we'll settle those roles in your next couple of days as we continue your support.
Right. So for most people on the call, Jason and North Highland will be kind of on the back end of this after the process. And so for at least the application portion, I think most of you won't need to have questions for Jason, but maybe later on. So thank you for being here this morning. We appreciate it.
No problem.
And then I have created a list of questions that I've received, and I just wanted to address those today so everyone is on the same page. Some of them are more complicated than others. Some are, a couple of people had issues with accessing the Excel worksheet. They required a password, but I've only heard from 2 people, so I don't think this is for everyone. So if you are having that issue, please contact us. We're still trying to figure out why that is, and we'll find a workaround if needed. A question I received was if an organization has received ARPA or PPP funding in the past, but it hasn't covered the full amount of the expense or deficit, can this funding be applied for to make that up? And that's yes. The funding can't cover the same amount of funding you received before, but if there's a deficit that you haven't received the PPP or other ARPA funding for, you can apply for this funding through this process to cover that. Can this funding cover salary? Yes, that's when the allowable expenses. And then confirmation and attestation number 4 question, we had a question about the dates. And that states the funds must be obligated, or the question is must be, and the date in the confirmation and attestation is 12/31/2026. And the question was, we thought it was 2024. The funds must be obligated by December 31st, 2024, and must be spent by December 31st, 2026. So I hope that clears that up. We have some questions. What will the reporting look like? That's something that we don't know yet, likely at midpoint and endpoint reporting. That's something that's still being worked out. And I believe those are all of the the questions that would apply to more than one organization. So before I open up to further questions, I want to address one specific portion of the application and talk about how equity and inclusion is addressed in the application in the process. The city's equity toolkit was utilized to derive some of the questions that you'll see under impact. And so it's built into the application itself. And then, so that will, you'll see in there, populations being served and all these other questions that relate to diversity and inclusion of how the funding is being spent. There's also in your philanthropy hub, which you'll have to be verified with your profile, there are questions about if you have a statement about diversity inclusion and your board makeup. And newly added to the hub profile, which if you've already been verified before, this is a new option. If you have further clarification about diversity inclusion in your organization and the makeup of the board, that the snapshot of the numbers doesn't clearly show, you can add a short narrative to give everyone, the reviewers, a better idea of how you're addressing equity inclusion in your board makeup. And that's not forward facing. This is not public facing. This is just the back end. So if you go on the Philanthropy Hub and search for an organization, you won't find that statement, but it'll be available to reviewers. And that, other than dates, deadline is March 17th at 5 p.m. That's coming up quickly. So it will be helpful to submit it as you're done instead of waiting until that last moment. Is that the reviewers of applications will begin the process immediately after it's submitted. And so then we won't have a backup of all of the applications submitted at one point. And I see there are questions in the chat, so I'll address those and then we can move to others. Oh, okay. Let's see here.
Kristen, I can read those to you if that would be helpful.
Yeah, that'd be great. Thank you, Nancy.
Okay. I have a question about the budget worksheet. Do we have to include all prior COVID-related funding, even if it isn't directly related to what we are requesting through this program? For example, we received a PPP loan, an NEH CARES grant, and Florida Humanities ARPA funding that were used for costs that wouldn't be part of the project budget on this application.
That is a good question that I don't know the answer to at the moment. And Caitlin from Matheson, I will research that and get back to you. I think one of the questions is, have you received funding already? And if you include it in your budget, it might clarify that it's not for the same expense, but I don't know the full answer. So I'll get back to you on that.
Kristen, could you get back to all of us on that? Because that was one of my questions.
Yes, definitely.
All right, next question. Are audited financial statements required?
Required for the application? See, Meg asked
Right.
that.
Yes, I was just wondering, I wanted to hopefully confirm they're not required for the application.
That's correct. As far as audited, that's not a requirement.
Okay,
Yes.
thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Philanthropy Hub asks that if you have them, you put them on Philanthropy Hub, but they are not a requirement.
Perfect. Thank you.
Okay. We have a question from Stephanie. Can you recreate the Excel sheet altogether without the password?
So Nancy and I were speaking about that. We will come up with a workaround. We'll work on that and see what we can do. It's something that we can't create. It's an error that we can't recreate, and others aren't having that. So we will. Yes, we will try to everything we can. If we have to add in the budget sheet separately, we'll work on that.
Okay. Jody would like to know, can funds be used as a match for a grant?
Is that for a potential grant?
Existing.
Yes. Yes, and that might be looked at as favorable as well to use some of
Do we
the-
need to state that it would be used as a match and within?
I would include that in your budget for the program.
Perfect.
Yeah, and make that.
Wouldn't it depend on where the grant is from? So if it's a federal grant or a state grant, you can't use federal or state money to match federal or state money. So it would have to be a non-state grant to do that.
And we'll clarify that over email. Jody, does that make sense? Okay.
Yeah, and I would like the clarification. I knew the federal grant. I was wondering also about the federal, and then the state, and then, oh yeah, that'd be great. Just that clarification.
Yeah.
And also, I'll take it one step further, also county, please.
Yeah, exactly.
County as well. Okay. Yes, that'll be another question we'll address. And if you have,
Government.
yes, if you have any organizational funds that will be used for the project you're submitting for, be sure to include that as part of your budget and make sure that's clear that you have funds that you're using, because that will be probably looked at by the reviewers.
Okay, I'm going to give Kristen a break because I think I can answer this next question for you. The next question is there a link where we can log in and view the application questions? There are two places where you can get a preview of the application. If you go on the Community Foundation website, cfncf.org/ARPA, or you can go just halfway down our homepage and you'll see a link to ARPA. On there, on the frequently asked questions page, there is a link to a sample application. You can do that. Or if you go ahead and create a profile on our grant system, when you first look at where the grant is listed, there is a button that you can click preview application that will show you exactly what it looks like without you actually having to start it. So you can see it either one of those two ways. All right, but now I'm kicking it back to Kristen. All right, Stacy would like to know, when the funds were with the city, there was a focus on equity projects. Is that still the case? Will there need to be documentation as to how the project is tied to the impact of the pandemic?
For the first question, equity is built in to the application here, so it is, and again, the toolkit was used. So if the impact is for populations who are adversely impacted by COVID, that will be more favorable in reviewing. And this is only a small portion of the total city ARPA funds. So even though this is going for nonprofit, for specific projects, the other ARPA funding as well will be used for other purposes that do address equity as well. And the documentation, so the application does require that you describe the impact, and if you have documentation tied to that, I would include that, but I'm not sure. Who asked that question? Can they clarify?
Let's see.
Stacy.
Yes, sorry, can you hear me?
Yes.
I guess I was really just wondering, as we look at different populations, because if we're looking at kind of an equity project that may just hit targeted community that we believe is impacted, and we may be able to show some statistics, are we going to have to be able to show individual level impact on each individual participating, or is it kind of just a community-wide impact?
So I believe that on the application, have you been able to look at the application?
I have not. I looked at
Okay.
the criteria that you guys have, but not the application.
Sure. So one of the questions on the application is for organizations with a gross revenue of more than $1 million. They do have to show existing disparities in the impact of COVID to the population, including local data if possible. And that data could be tied to health, socioeconomic status, housing factors, and other factors specific to the program seeking funding. So there, that is for the larger organizations. But if you any kind of documentation that you have would be great, but no, it doesn't need to go to the individual for impact. And once you look at the application, Nancy mentioned where you can see the sample application. If you still have additional questions about that, please let me know and we'll look into that.
Okay, I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Great. Meg would like to know if we would like to propose multiple projects, should we include them in one application?
So that is a question that I have received that I'm looking to the answer for the answer on Monday. The review committee for the applications will be meeting before they begin reviewing. So I will present that question to them. That is more of not so much a yes, no question. That's more of project design and how the reviewers will review it. Just so I can't say yes or no, but I will say that if the two projects can be tied together, if they're related and can be put together into with an overarching theme or project description, that I would go in that way. If they're two totally different projects, I would lean away from that. But something that so when the reviewers will be reviewing the applications, they have reserved the opportunity to do partial funding of an application instead of full funding. So if you do have two projects, I can't say how that will be evaluated itself, but partial funding is a potential potential outcome.
Thank you.
Okay.
Just to clarify, I will bring that before the committee.
Thank you.
Monday, and then if I have, I doubt I'll have a succinct answer to this. But I will bring any information that I get from them and share that.
Thank you. Okay, I'm going to read you one more question, and then I see that Addison, you have your hand up as well. So let me get this one off of the chat. Caitlin would like to know, could you please explain what documents are needed for the budget to actual and balance sheet section of the application? I want to be sure I'm creating the correct documents.
Okay. That is something that I'm not going to be able to review for the organizations for two reasons. One, that's not my forte, and second, I don't want to do any mistakes that will have impact on the application itself. But if there are very specific, let's set a call. Let's meet by phone and we'll see what we can clarify for that. And who is that? They asked that, Nancy?
That is Caitlin from Matheson.
Okay, yes.
Okay. Addison, if you want to go ahead and ask your question, that would be great.
Great, thank you. Good morning. Kind of similar question as that's been brought up about multiple projects or asking, because I'm just now kind of getting in. I've had the sample questions, but it says name of project, and if the suggestion is to put all in one project, or that our proposal would be, better suited to have only one project, we can lump in multiple projects into one project name. That's fine, because it's all centered around our after school program. But, I just don't know how that works with the budget. I don't know how that works with the narrative. Like, are we going to differentiate when we switch talking about, because the character counts and the character limits seem to be really short, especially with some of the data and the impact. So I also didn't know if there's one, guidance on the multiple projects into one project, and then two, the character count seems a little low, and if there was a reason for that.
So first, ideally one project. That's the ideal situation. If you do want to do more than one project, if they're closely related and you can put it under one umbrella, that would be ideal. But when you get down to multiple projects that are loosely related, that is what I would stay away from. And again, I can't give a yes or no on this. This is a project design and kind of question how you want to design your project. But I'll get clarification from the review committee to see how they'll view that, how they'll view multiple and ask for multiple projects on a single application. And that meeting will be Monday, so I can have that answer after Monday. And the character limits, we tried to, the review committee tried to make this as painless as possible, as streamlined and simple. I know that's difficult with applications. If you are running up against a major roadblock with the characters, let me know, and we'll see what we can do. But try to stay within the limits. It'll be more favorable reviewed by the committee for concise narratives.
Thank you.
Yeah,
I
thank
think
you for that question.
our next person with their hand up is from Partnership for Strong Families.
Good morning. This is Cherie Kelly from the Library Partnership Resource Center. And I do apologize. I hadn't had an opportunity to look at the questions. So I feel like maybe some of what I've been asking could have already been answered through that question list. Since these funds originated through the city, one of the questions that we had even with our original proposal was if the funds did have to be targeted to areas within the city limits.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. That was very clear.
Yes. Yes. Thank you. That was an easier question.
Okay, Liz, I see that you have your hand up.
Hi, thanks y'all very much. This has been really helpful. My question is regarding the sustainability portion of the application. So in the original applications, we were encouraged to only be looking at the funds as short term, right? These are relief funds, right? And we are only thinking of them in relation to limited term projects that will end after the funding period. But there is this question of sustainability. How will these programs be funded? Is a simple explanation that this program is limited term, it ends. Is that acceptable as a response?
Exactly. Yeah, that's
Okay.
perfect.
Okay, great, thanks.
All right, on that, there's nothing more in the chat. Anybody else have any questions that they want to ask?
I'm just looking forward to the back end reporting aspect that's to be coming. So that's what I was looking forward to.
So that so the community foundation's role is to the application portion of it, and then after that's submitted, the reporting will be managed by another entity. But we don't have yet clarification from the city on what that will look like yet. Jason, you're unmuted. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, I apologize.
No problem. I thought you were going to say something. That's why I said that.
I think they will. We'll get you some more information as best as we can in the global sense. Like to Kristen's point, may not be managed by the community foundation, but we'll see what we can give you just in general. There's some best practices that are 2 CFR related, like recognizing that ARPA dollars are a supplemental funding stream, but basically any money that comes out from the federal government kind of also has the 2 CFR best practices, this kind of federal requirements for grant reporting and all that fun stuff that'll be tied. So maybe I can give you some of those just kind of helpful hints hints along the way. There's certainly some quick documents I can put together. Like if there's an expenditure out, we should have a documentation that, that piece of documentation that's tied to that, right? That's a pretty basic rule, right? If we're doing things, with like material or labor, sometimes there's questions like that can be helpful just so that you have them ready for you. May not be explicitly necessary based on the final rule in that situation, and we'll see if we can marry those up. But those are always just kind of best practices as we manage federal funds.
Thank you. Addison, I see that you have your hand up.
Yeah, just wanted to confirm the last date that we can put in the budget is 12/31/24. So that's where we should take our budget to, but we can spend those funds up until 2026. Is that correct?
Yes, yes, exactly. 2024, the end of 2024 is when the funds have to be obligated, but they don't have to be spent until 2026. So any expenditures after December 31st, 2024 would not be part of this application. And you don't have, that doesn't mean that you have to have your expenditures go that far, but that is the limit for the expenditures.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, we have a couple of questions in the chat, which I think are referring to the documents that Jason was talking about. Where will the documents be available? Will we make them available generally? Anything that we become aware of that's available, we will put on the page on the Community Foundation website that is for ARPA. So as any of that becomes available, we can put it under the frequently asked questions. I'm hoping I'm answering what was being asked there. Okay, just as a reminder, the recordings of all of these Friday sessions are available on our website. This one will probably go up on Monday, but if you want to watch any of the previous Friday sessions, they're all available. There will be one more Friday session next Friday. I'm going to put the registration link into the chat right now. Or if you have any difficulty with that, you can always email office@cfncf.org to register for that. Anything else that I'm forgetting? Any other questions? Kristen, anything else you want to add before we wrap up?
I will go back and take note of all the questions that were asked today. If there are any that need more clarification or more than one person wants to know the answer to, I'll be sure to contact you by email. I think most of the people here, or a lot of people here, I've already communicated by email, but if not, and if you have a question that has not been fully addressed, do please email me so that I can get that cleared up. And then if we need to do a phone call or a Zoom one-on-one meeting, we can do that as well. And again, that email address is arpa@cfncf.org. So thank you everyone for joining me this morning, or joining us this morning. Thank you, Jason, for being here, and Nancy as well. And we will see you again next week.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.